I want to take a moment and talk about a topic that's really tough this time of year for a lot of people in the beginning stages of this. And that is spending holidays without your kids. One of the odds, realities, is for whatever reason, divorces tend to occur around the holidays. Maybe they start at the end of summer, but you're in the midst of it in the holidays. Oftentimes, an ex will use what they call the nuclear option, which is basically going for an order of protection, a restraining order, temporary restraining order, depending on what it's called in your area. And effectively what that accomplishes, typically what happens is it's the preliminary stuff has happened around the holidays and you're just caught up in it that you don't even really get your hearing until after the holidays are over. Or, you know, if it gets firmed up. Most of the times, unless you do something that really justifies or validates an order of protection, once you finally get to court, a lot of times they will get struck down. The caveat with that is if you've made any mistakes, any significant mistakes, then that obviously complicates it more. Then that kind of changes things if that happens. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll use that order of protection or the threat of it becoming permanent to try to get you to make deals or concessions. I don't know how many times people have reached out to me via email during this period of time where they said they've made those concessions. They've agreed to a custody arrangement that was better than nothing, which is what they had, but was far less from what they were looking for because they just were dying to see their kids. They were really feeling the isolation of not having anybody around. Now, one thing I just want to mention, you know, a lot of times people can think that, you know, well, the man works all the time. He never sees the kids anyways. You know, if you're going by the stereotypes. The problem is that when that person comes home, they're around everybody. And when these things happen, yeah, okay, you still have to go to work, so you're still dealing with the work thing, but now you're coming home to a quiet house. And if you're not prepared for that, or if you're not used to it, or you're not set up to deal with that, it's a very difficult situation to be in. I don't think a lot of people realize it. Most people don't realize how complex and how difficult this is until they've been through it. If you haven't been through this before, I know I mention this a lot, you really have no concept of what's going on, what the emotions really are. Again, you can be encouraged to make concessions in this period of time that really don't help you in the long term. So you really have to be careful of what you agree to and realize that it can be a trap to get yourself into. The main thing to remember on this is what you're going through right now, depending on the decisions you make, isn't going to be your forever. Had I been dealing in the situation, and granted, I wasn't under an order of protection, so even though the ex was threatening it, I was still taking the kids to school every day. I mean, it was just, there's a lot of stupidness in my situation. But had I felt that I needed to make concessions for their threats, I wouldn't have 50-50 today. It would be a much different scenario. To be perfectly honest, at least according to my attorney, had I agreed to anything less, or had I lost and only was basically set up to be a weekend dad every other weekend, the standard visitation, there would have been a high probability that the ex could have made the argument that there was no reason to stay here. It was better for her and the kids to move out of state, move someplace different, and potentially that could have been granted because because the courts don't think about the reoccurring time, they just look at it as numbers. They would have looked at it and said, okay, fine, well, you can have your 20% of the time during the summer. And you know, it'll all be great, right? So I was really fixated on that. So bottom line, what I'm saying is that if you're in the midst of this, and I know it's hard, I know it's tough, maintain your strength, maintain your, not your facade, but maintain your perseverance to deal with this so you don't get caught up in that long-term trap. Don't make a decision for this moment that's going to negatively affect you for a decade or more later on down the road. This period of time is just this period of time. I absolutely understand that it doesn't feel like that. I absolutely understand that it feels like this moment is forever. And this pain and this loneliness and this loss is forever. It isn't. Don't make decisions that are going to negatively affect you. The last thing I want to mention before I wrap this up is that also means don't react negatively. When somebody is playing this game, when they're playing this order of protection, temporary restraining order game, because it's a game in a lot of ways, if you allow it to push your buttons, to get angry, to react in a way that validates all their claims, then your situation will get infinitely more complicated and much harder to dig out of. So on that, I'm gonna wrap this video up. If you want to add to the discussion, please do that in the comments below. If you've struggled with this, you're dealing with this, or you've had experience with it, please share your story. That could be helpful for other people. If you find this channel helpful and this information helpful, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification so that YouTube will tell you about the videos. If you want to catch some more videos I've done, I keep my Mindset for Narcissistic Abuse playlist right down at the bottom right, and a video specifically picked from YouTube for you right up here. And I'll chat with you in the next video. Take care, guys.